for the first time in like ages. So after feeding the sheeps. So what we're going to do, I'm gonna mention Dell's with us tonight. He's one of my Bridgend people. He's been with me for like 8 years in Bridgend, but he was doing sort of the Wednesday evening, and now he's with us, so that's good. So I'll do all the introductions now. So try to keep it the usual thing. Try to keep it brief, but one of you at the end has to give me a little bit of time because I'm still setting up the technology in the background. I'm really pleased today because my my new Jackery solar panels arrived, so I'm really chuffed with that. Pat's gone back out and she's gone back in. Right, one of you is going to have to take control of this because I think we've got internet problems. So can you keep an eye on stuff, please?
Yes, okay.
Right, so first of all, Dell, anything you'd like to tell us today? And also, anything, just talk to us.
Yeah.
Dell?
Well,
What's happened to him?
Okay, I muted
So
myself.
first of all, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, Dell. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Right.
No, I took a friend down to Merthyr Mawr the other day, just because he sort of got a history degree and stuff, or so he says. And
Right, fair enough, one of those. Right.
showed him some of the stuff behind the church and the preaching stone and a few things like that, and gave him a few sort of myths and legends according to my interpretation.
I love it.
Yeah, he was absolutely fascinated. He'd been down there in the car with his family, but he didn't know what was behind the church, and the fact that the church was actually slightly further out than it is now. So I showed him the boundaries and everything, and yeah, he was absolutely fascinated.
It's good, Dell. It's good to share that. It's good to share local history with everybody. It really is. Take people out. And actually, Dell, that's led me directly into something I want to say. I've decided to, at the end of the month, which is the 25th, and then we've got the 1st of June, we've got a walk in Cowbridge, which I'm leading, an archaeological walk. If anyone's interested in that, that's at 2 o'clock. They need to let me know. And then we got one in Barry, which is on the 1st of June, and that's on a Thursday at 2 o'clock as well. It's looking at areas where there's been archaeological excavation sites, and it'll be done very differently. We won't be talking about the history and stuff. We'll be talking about the archaeology. So anyone interested in those, let me know in the break or something. Right, okay. Thank you for that, Dell. Right, Peter.
Yes. Oh, which one?
Oh, look, you know the rule. You know the rule, right? The rule is the first Peter to talk gets to talk first. The one who talks first talks first.
I don't have any news.
No, guys, right? No. Peter talk first, not Peter. So the first Peter talks.
I was given a free turkey egg last week, and of which I scrambled with pepper and salt and butter, and it tasted very, very nice.
Right, what did it taste like, Pete?
It tasted like an egg.
Oh, for God.
And it was free. It was free.
Right.
Should have tasted better.
Off me.
Really yellow.
Yeah, the yolk was yellow. Yeah, no, it would have been
very,
orange.
very yellower than the average.
Well, the eggs I buy are quite yellow anyway. Well,
yeah, because you're a bloody cheapskate and you
more,
buy the cheapest,
more to an orange.
More of an orange.
Yellow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but you get yours from Quick Save, don't you? 30 for like 5p or something.
No, I use perfect browns.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough. Right, okay, on that note, right, that's Pete done. Everyone's doing my head in already, right? The one who's not going to do my head in is David. Anything you'd like to say, David?
No, thank you.
You see, I get a sensible answer from David, just like that, straight there. Right, okay, right. Adam.
came across some underwater Stonehenges off the coast of Israel. I don't know if you've if you know about them.
The ones that have been submerged. Yes, tell us a little bit more about that.
I haven't got much to go on actually, but I was sent something yesterday, and it's just I'll send it to you. But yeah, it's there's been a few found. There's a few intact, which are really good looking. About 9,000 years old, they reckon.
Sort of a little bit after go deppy teppy, but yes, it's good. See, I'm glad stuff is coming out. That's good. Thank you for that, Adam. Right, Adam. Right, make sure you have your shots in advance of coming to West Wales. TB, syphilis, everything. You need it all. Right. Yes. So we're going to put you in the corner with the sheeps.
Wait.
The Borough raised sheep.
The new ones.
Yeah, so if one of the sheep is missing in the morning and we can't find it, we know where it is.
That's it.
Right. Okay. Talking about people. Right. I'm a bit confused where Margaret is tonight. She's in a different background. We've been in your bedroom for the past 2 years, Margaret. Me and Andy want to know.
I'm at my son Phil. This is his office room at home down in Northamptonshire.
Ooh.
Well, for me, it's up in Northamptonshire, isn't it? But for you, it's down, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's across from you, I think.
Is it? It's in England. It's England anyway, so don't worry about it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But anyway,
right.
It's my birthday tomorrow, and he's taking me to see something ancient.
Well, you're going to have the full sing song. Pembloedd Harper, see he, Pembloedd Harper, see he, Pembloedd Harper, Sanol Margaret, Pembloedd Harper, see he.
I'm also
Pembloedd Hapus, Margaret.
He's taking me to somewhere called Chester House Estate. I suspect it's Roman. There's a lot of Roman stuff around Peterborough area.
Is that house that's got like a mosaic in the garden or something? You'll have to let us know.
Yes, I think that's what we're going to look at. It's about 8 miles from here.
Good. We want to know more next week. And actually, Margaret, a bit of a clue, right? The first thing that we look at today is about the Romans. So, don't tell anyone. Okay. But yeah, the Romans in the
still doing Neolithic.
Oh, look, why is it you're always fussy, right? We are doing the Neolithic, but the first thing we're going to look at is the Romans, okay? Get over it. Right, okay, now this should work now. Peter.
What?
No! Right, Peter.
No, I've got nothing. I'm looking forward to Neolithic Causewayed enclosures though.
Good. Don't fall asleep. Right, okay. Right. Talking about falling asleep, Andy's probably going to go. Andy. By the way, Andy, I'm impressed. Your hair seems to have grown.
No, it's wild. It's just that Liverpool air.
Yeah.
Very nice people down there, I have to say. I had a really good fun time.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, real good crack.
All to the earth.
But I all I can say really is I've never had a turkey egg.
Me neither.
Well, all right, look, okay, right. I've got one left, right? I've got one left, and there is a way we could probably put it in like packaging to get to you. I don't know, right? But now I'm gonna have a fight over it. Dave's gonna say he wants one as well, so we'll cancel, Oh, by the way, yes, I will think about it, Andy.
No. So I wasn't after one. I didn't realize you'd come from you. I just thought I don't think I've ever had a turkey egg.
No.
But,
it was my first one, I must admit.
And it was just like an egg.
A big egg.
But a little bit bigger.
It was a big egg, yeah.
Talking about sheep.
Hey?
Oh my God, please.
Turkeys.
Yeah, I know, but before then, Carl was talking about his newly
rare
acquired
sheep. Yeah.
My son, when he was a little boy, got a sheep disease. I noticed he got a great big sore. Where's Carl gone?
Yeah.
He got a big sore on his hand, which turned into a big crater.
Oh.
big hole. And
Right.
the doctor didn't know what it was. He got no idea. But I
What?
just happened to know a local vet. And she said it's something called a sheep orf, O-R-F. And our cat used to go up into the fields where the sheep were, and the
Right.
cat had probably transmitted it to my son.
Oh,
And it would have eaten away the whole of his hand. But she said, if you put Gentian violet on, it will stop it spreading and getting any worse. So look out for something called sheep orf.
Right,
Ooh.
madam, don't sleep with a sheep. It's highly not recommended. Right, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Margaret. You really wrecked my day. Right, I handle and fondle these sheep all the time now. It's ruined it. Right, Pat.
no, nothing. Thank you.
Right, okay. Anne our no, right, not Anne on a Wednesday, Del. Anne on a Tuesday, which is a different Anne. Has got family over, and no news from Gina this week, which is the first time. Right, so I'm gonna start off with basically telling you that I'm starting to rapidly go through loads of paperwork and like burn reams and reams of stuff and whatever, because I'm trying to get myself in a position that I can get lots of my book writing done. I finally sat down today for the first time in ages and spent a nice session on some book writing. So that's good. And in that, I found this. And what we're going to do, we're going to show what that was on the screen now. Basically, what this is, it's a press cutting that is from 2003, right? And it's connected to a friend of mine called Nancy Rosenberg. And it's something that I'm sure some of you will delight upon. And it is a thing on the Romans, so I'm sure some of you will be really into that. We don't often do Roman stuff, but because we are doing prehistory. So let's go straight into it. And here we go, screen. And start, starry, starry night. Paint your palette blue and grey. Right, okay, here we go. And you can see I'm in a singing mood today, can't you? Oh, gallery. Go on, Pete. Don't go and say it, Pete. Did you call that singing? Right, okay, right, okay. Right, so if I do that, hang on a minute. Where is it? Hang on. Why is it?
There.
Do you know what? Hang on, I know it's there. Right, hang on a minute. Hang on. It seems to have. Right, what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to go back on. I do believe I've got a little technical problem. For some reason, it's not saving these things. Hang on. So if I stop that a minute, I'm going to go off and I'm going to come back in. There seems to be loads of technical problems with everybody tonight. I don't know what it is. Margaret, tell us about a book that you've read from the library.
Well, I'm away from my library at the moment. But have you read Opsy the Iceman yet, Andy?
I've made a good start on it. It's really interesting, isn't
It's
it?
good, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's one of the books from the library being read, Carl.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad somebody can read. Right, okay. Let's just try and find this. Do you ever have those days that things don't work, are not working right?
Most days, actually.
Yeah, it's a normal day. Yeah.
I seem to have all the slides from the class here, right?
Except one.
Except for the ones that are about. I've actually taken these as images twice so far. So I'm just gonna go and see where they are. If not, we're just gonna have to show them on the screen. Nope, it's not there. Right, okay. Right, okay. Right, I'm gonna try something else. Let's use another piece of technology. Let's try and take a photograph of these things now. Right, okay, here we go. Okay. Oh God, why is it not? Hang on a minute. I seem to have found them all. And then again, I've lost all my other slides. Oh God, this ain't gonna go well. But okay, I have actually found them all. So I do believe this is gonna work. Right, okay. Margaret, right? You have faith in me because I don't. Okay, right.
Oh, you can do it.
I've done it. I've done it. Hopefully I've done it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done it. So if I
Did we miss it?
no, we didn't. Hang on. I've worked it out. Right. So if I so if we screen share, hang on. Technology. Right. Right. Okay. Right. We've missed it nearly. But okay, I need to get back on there. Hang on. Do apologise for this, folks. Massive technical problems. It's your fault, Margaret.
I did see a thing, an Alice Roberts program. I don't know if it was on last night. Alice Roberts that does the bones.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
They were uncovering a lot of female skeletons. And they were saying it looked pretty much, these were in the Iron Age. It looked very much as if it was a matriarchal society back then. And she just wondered when did it change to being a male-dominated society?
When Boris Johnson took control.
Yeah, but it was interesting. In the Iron Age, they were mostly women.
Can I just react to that? It's if you even suggested that about 100 years ago, you'd be burnt at the stake for heresy. And this is one thing that some of us archaeologists have known for a long time, that when you do look at the archaeological record, there are quite a number of dominant females that have been buried, and you know, yeah, this is one thing that's coming out, and actually, Margaret, that's really interesting that you've said that. Matriarchal, and this is a matriarchal find. This is actually this article I've been looking for a while. It concerns a lotion. Are you seeing this on the screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
It concerns a tub of lotion, and the headlines are: archaeologist Elizabeth Barham shows off the tub of lotion, the Roman finger mark still smeared on the lid.
Wow.
That is wow. And when you said matriarchal, obviously matriarchal. Roman society wasn't matriarchally based, except when you do look at it, women that did have power in Roman society had a great deal of power. And this is a woman that had power, that had that tub of lotion with her. Now, what I've done is I've broken this down, and what we've got, I'm going to read out this full piece, and looking into the eyes of that lady there, and basically in the lid there, it's actually got the finger marks smeared on the lid inside. Those are finger marks smeared. It was sealed shut and left as an offering to the gods back in the days when the Romans ruled Britain. And you know, when I first saw this piece all the way back in 2003, I was delighted that the person who managed the excavation was actually a friend of mine called Nancy. Yesterday, archaeologists gazed in awe as the pot was opened for the first time in almost 2,000 years, and found in its still white contents the finger marks of its original owner. Experts are astonished that the white cream, probably a beauty treatment for the hands or face or both, has been almost perfectly preserved since around the year 150 AD. So, okay, give or take a few years here, but it's more or less, you could say 2,000 years old. Okay. So the circular metal tin was found in the remains of a temple site in Southwark in the heart of London. And anyone that knows anything about Southwark, they will know that Southwark is on the south bank of the River Thames. The Romans, right, here we go. It is thought to have been left as an offering to the pagan deities of Roman Britain back then. The gods sought help from their gods for most of life's problems, and presents of money, pottery, jewelry, foodstuffs, and expensive oils and ointments were left in temples across the empire. For example, in a Mithras temple, and it's not in this piece, in the Mithras temple in the 1956 when it was excavated, they found literally thousands of oil lamps, thousands of them. And in fact, there were so many that members of the public were allowed to go home with them. Which is quite shocking, I know, but that's life. It is believed the cream's original owner was a wealthy Roman woman, as it would have been an expensive luxury item. And if we sort of look there, perhaps she hoped to have her beauty enhanced, or was asking the gods to cure a skin condition. A pungent, sulfurous smell was released as the pot was gently eased open. Inside, finger marks were smeared on the lid. Now, personally, I would have opened that in a sealed laboratory and actually obtained those fumes and analysed them, because it would have given us a good indication of what the environment was like in London at that time. But obviously, hindsight. The woman may have dabbed on the cream one last time before leaving the temple. The pot lay buried for most of the past 2,000 years while London grew around it. Francis Grew, curator of the Museum of London's early collections, where the pot will go on display, could not hide his excitement. I don't know how it's been put on display, because you somehow you'd need to keep the fingerprints intact. I don't know how that works. We are in absolutely uncharted territory. It is a fabulous find, incredible. Totally agree. It's very, very rare to find a box complete with lid and contents. I can't think of any other examples from the rest of Roman Britain. There's going to be huge interest in this. It is something that belonged to the bourgeoisie, not a senator, but someone of wealth, a female of wealth. We have to wait for scientific analysis first, but we do know that the Romans use ass's cream for the face. Emperor Nero's wife, Poppaea, used to take baths in ass's milk and thought it was very good for her skin, i.e. ass's cream. The exquisite cylindrical pin box, so there we go, beautiful, which is just 2 inches high and 2.5 inches diameter, is of such good workmanship that the seal appears to have remained sound. Well, it did remain sound, end of. The fact that it was an expensive item hidden on a temple site makes the archaeologists believe it was an offering to the gods. Nancy Rosenberg, yes, senior archaeologist consultant at E.C. Harris, which managed the dig, said, to find finger marks is so very extraordinary. We are literally touching hands with history. And personally, for me, that's me, that's really a connection with the past. That's not a connection with the past, it's in the present. It's almost as if it's a time travel object, and they've opened it. And they've connected. They've connected with the people at that moment that it was sealed and placed into the ground. In other words, the smell that was released is the same air that was sealed in that container. So time has not traveled. This is a time travel item. And I think this is so wonderful to find something like this. It's almost as if, you know, those footprints that we've spoken about, and we've said about the footprints from the Neolithic period and Mesolithic period, and they're perfectly preserved, and then they get washed away, and you think that the footprints were made like an hour ago, right? This is that type of thing. Connection is time travel. Time travel does exist if you're really understanding what I'm getting at. We're lucky in London to have a marshy site where the contents of this completely sealed box must have been preserved very quickly. The metal is hardly corroded at all. That's another point as well. It was a year-long dig at Tabard Square. The site contained the foundations of 2 square Roman temples and a guest house, a mansio. Other important discoveries included pottery, 3 plinths, statue of Lloyd George, and part of the statues that would have been on them, and leather shoes. And last autumn, it also turned up a stone plaque with the first recorded use of the name Londinium. I love that. I absolutely loved it. So I'm going to go with my learned wisdom and possibly use the first set of slides first, because I think if I don't follow with the slides that follow now, right, we're not going to be able to get them again, right? So we are going to go directly on to Causewayed enclosures. Now, I'm showing you this ditch, and we're going to do part 2 of my talk now. And I'm turning directly to ancient Britain. And I do like to disagree or agree with myself in this type of lecture, because I do get over excited with a subject that I really want to get my teeth into. And again, this is a subject that I will do again, and anything that we haven't looked at. So this is mentioned in ancient Britain, and we've got some nice slides, a nice skull. So what we've got, ditch with contents, building up this image, a skull. What's the skull got to do with it? There you go. It's giving you, this site itself is actually Windsheet Hill. We're going to another site called Windmill Hill for most of what we do with Causewayed enclosures today. And so where is it? Okay. And I do believe the other images that I want to show you are not with us at this minute. But what we are going to do is we're going to zoom into this, and we're going to basically take us over to there. And what you can slightly see there is that you can see a ditch and a bank on the left and a bank on the right. Basically, this isn't a real great example, but this is one of the legendary sites when we look at Causewayed enclosures, Windsheet Hill. And this is on the edge of the chalk in Wiltshire. They're usually draped over the hill. They're not directly, they're at a bit of an angle, most of these sites. You look into them rather than look from above. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a really nice assortment of these sites, and they do very much look like a string of sausages, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go out of these slides a minute. I'm going to go directly on Google, because there's an image that I haven't managed to copy out of this book, right? Or then again, what I might do is try technology and see if I can do something else. Hang on a minute, folks. I'm gonna see if I can use technology in a different way. Right, if I do that, and it's worked. Oh, right, I got my images back. I don't know how this is working. It's certainly working again. Right, brilliant. This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted to show you. Right, and brilliant. My images are there. Andy, I don't know what you've done. You've waved a wand. This is an image in ancient Britain, and this shows you an array of causewayed enclosures. So the one that I'm really interested in today is number 1 is Windmill Hill in Wiltshire. This isn't too far away from Avebury. And then number 2 is Robin Hood's Ball in Wiltshire. Okay, number 2. Number 3 is the one that we've just seen the image of, the aerial view. That's Windsheet Hill. So are they all in Wiltshire? No, they're not. They're not. They're all over Britain. Yes. But the ones in this book are mainly referred to sort of in the south. Number 4 is Briar Hill, which we might come up with in the next look at Causewayed enclosures. Number 5 is White Hawk in Sussex. Now, since ancient Britain was written, and obviously when it was first written, I've got to remind myself, it was published in 1990. Since 1990s, we found a number of examples in Wales. Up until 1990, none had been found in Wales, right? And well, when I say none, there were about 2 examples in Wales. One
Carl,
was a bit
are
dodgy.
these like the ones, the banjo enclosures up on Marga Mountain?
Nothing like it, Dal. Nothing like it. Nothing
Okay,
like
that's
it.
fine, because
Nothing
I've
like it.
seen those.
Nothing like it, right?
Hey.
And can I tell you something? Right? I want to let you into a secret that I've never told anyone before, right? I was working at a site in the Vale of Glamorgan at a place called Norton Hall Farm, and the farmer gave us permission, and it was like 1998. 1997, 1998, something like that, and I'd been field walking in the field one year, and we'd been finding lots of Neolithic flint and Neolithic chert, and we'd found 1 or 2 bits of prehistoric pottery, and I just thought, oh, that's nice. So anyway, the following year I went back and we did some more field walk, and we kept finding lots of Neolithic stuff, and I just didn't take it any further, right? The next time we went, this is why I'm saying you should report. This is why I'm saying you should publish your stuff as soon as you can, right? And I went there this one day, and there was a group of people in the field that we had been field walking in, and they were from the National Museum of Wales, and I was in another field opposite the road with a group of people field walking, and I was a bit angry because I thought, hang on a minute, that was our field, right? And I had my trowel, and the other archaeologist had his trowel, and we walked into the middle of the road with his group of people on the one side. This actually happened, and my group of people on my side, right? And the guy said, oh, actually, we're here because a few weeks ago we took an aerial photograph, and we had found a causewayed enclosure in this field. And if I'd reported it the year earlier, I would have been the first person in Wales to find a definitely positively identified causewayed enclosure. I didn't learn my lesson, but that guy, Stephen Burrows, is still working for the National Museum of Wales. And we had a little bit of a falling out a couple of years ago, but now we've patched it up. He sent me a really nice letter, and we had a bit of communication, and we patched it up. And that was because I was really upset that he got this find. But this is how rare causewayed enclosures are, and they're very difficult to identify. But when you do identify them, you identify a few in an area, and they're fascinating, really important sites. And there's some really interesting stuff that we look at today in regards to these causewayed enclosures. And I think Pete's going to chuck this in there. So before Pete chucks this in there, don't these look very similar to those cup and ring marks that we see on rocks, Peter?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yes, they do. They do. They do. And that's
They certainly do. Oh, yes.
They do. They certainly do. Yeah. And we've actually got an image today showing that. So so there we go. So we're gonna keep this here. What I want to do, I don't usually directly read out a book, as I'm going to do today, without sort of putting stuff in, but I'm going to do it. Let's see what I want to do is see. I want to put other people's ideas in for these, and then I want to see if I agree with them. And I'm going to probably say that I probably will agree with most of this anyway. Causewayed enclosures. These enclosures, of which about 50 are known, we could probably say 100 are known now, are usually roughly circular in plan. Yeah, we agree with that. And consist of 1, 2 or 3 concentric rings of ditches. Well, the one, number 5, which if I remind myself, is White Hawk in Sussex. There's 1 or 2 more rings than that. And so these are concentric rings around the center. and dug as a series of irregular pits. You know, when I showed you that earlier on with the one at White Sheet Hill, and I said you can see a ditch and you can see a bank either side, right? That's what I was referring to. You can see that if you look, there's these here actually, these sausages. I'm glad I used the word sausages because that comes up in a minute, right? Sausage, causeway, sausage causeway, sausage causeway, sausage causeway. There we go. So these are those irregular pits. And it says dug as a series of regular pits, probably by gang labour. Well, that's a point I'm not going to agree with, because it comes into me explaining what they're for in a short while. And separated by undug causeway, yes, of soil, rather like a string of, drum roll, sausages.
Sausages.
Sausages. Sausages. They do look like a ring. They do look like sausages. Actually, I should have asked you, Pete, what do they look like? Sausages. The material from the ditches was thrown up into an internal bank. Now, that's not shown there, but what we do see is when we look at the example at Windmill Hill, we do see the banks. We do see them. There we go. And sometimes revetted with posts or turf or crowned by a stockade. Now, the stockade, the stakes. So let me explain. So behind this string of sausages, you get a bank which equally has breaks in it, or you might get a bank with less breaks in it, right? But you've got stakes on there, and what you're going to put on top of those stakes? Remains of your loved ones. That's my thought anyway. That's not what it says in the book, but maybe you might say that. The material, so this creating internal banks. Many of these banks have now disappeared entirely. And the reason why is because of plough activity. These are on sort of fairly good agricultural land, and the soil has ended up back in the ditches. What date do these dates for? What date are they from? 6,000, 5,000, thereabout years ago. It was originally thought, let's just read this out. It was originally thought that the gaps in the ditches were entrances for droving cattle. Okay, and that gaps in the banks correspond with them. However, if you did that, the cattle would just go everywhere. It's just, yeah. However, it is clear that the banks were much more continuous, with only a few breaks in places. In other places, lots of breaks. If entrances existed, they cannot always be positively identified. But groups of post holes at places like White Hawk, Hambledon Hill, Hambledon Hill, is that in Dorset or Wiltshire? I'm not sure. Have been interpreted as the remains of wooden gates. So later on, they've altered in what they're about, and maybe that might actually be platforms rather than gateways. Little sense has been made of the interior of the enclosures, which seem to contain a massive pits, post holes, and gullies. So we go back out again, lots of pits, post holes, and gullies. What are all these pits and post holes and gullies about? Right now, that really leads us into sort of thinking about platforms, thinking about bodies being placed on platforms, sky burials. And yes, there was a writer called David Mercer. I think he might be still with us, I'm not sure. David Mercer would write about these places as being wretched places of death. He would write the following. Not David Mercer, Roger Mercer. He would write, a vast, reeking, open cemetery, its silence broken only by the din of crows and ravens. So there's a lot going on with these sites. There really, really is. Some people used to think that these were actually settlements. But, you know, it's a burial ground. It's a cemetery. And but one thing that we need to think about is the idea that later on, some of these sites changed use. And one site that was believed to be a causewayed enclosure is the most famous prehistoric site of them all, Stonehenge. They believe but that's on a fairly flat plain. But you don't always get causewayed enclosures draped on the side of a hill. You sometimes get them on flat plains, but usually draped on the side of the hill. The idea is that if you're approaching one of these from the opposite side of the hill, you can see into them and you can see the activity. But when you're actually at these sites, the sense of death overpowers you. But death to our ancestors is a sense of connection with those people that have passed away, and the bones and the corpses that litter these sites can still be visited, and the loved ones celebrated for who they were. Pick up their skull, then finding a stake which is erect on one of these banks, and the skull will still have some of the brain in it decaying. And as you take the skull, you place it on the stake, and obviously the suction squelch of the brain, and then obviously there would be movement of the jaw as well because of the actions of this. And the skull was usually faced looking out at the landscape. So as you ploughed or worked on the landscape, you can still see your loved one's face looking at you. Hopefully the jaw's still there. If it's not, then you've got a jawless skull. Obviously the sinews are going to hopefully keep the jaw intact because it's some of the last tissue that actually rots away. The causewayed enclosures crown rounded hills in the chalk lands like the Trundle in Sussex and Knapp Hill in Wiltshire. But they are also found in low-lying valleys like Abingdon in Oxfordshire, Staines in Middlesex, and on saddles and ridges as at Cwm Hill and Whitehawk, both in Sussex. They're almost, it says they are almost exclusively to lowland Britain, but it says almost exclusively, and we'll explain what that means in a minute, to lowland Britain and stretch from Hembury in Devon, north to Arrowas in Staffordshire, and Barham in Lincolnshire, with a possible addition in South Kirby in West Yorkshire, but they are found elsewhere in Britain, in Wales, Anglesey, Scotland. They are found in other places. So they're probably found in these lower, these chalk lands, because they are more the landscapes of the world. There is as yet little evidence that the majority of enclosures were built for defensive purposes, and the earthworks sometimes slope down the side of a hill across the contours, as though deliberately displaying their interiors to the outside world, as I've mentioned. However, some East Anglian sites seem to have massive stockades inside the ditches, which might be interpreted as a form of defense. And again, I'm still reading from this book to sort of give you a sense. And maybe what I might do is just sort of move around with the images. This itself is the enigmatic, beautiful and spectacular. This is Windmill Hill. And you can actually see here that this is actually dominated by other barrows and so on, right? And I don't know if you saw there was a call coming in on my screen there. I think that was my acting agent in the States. But anyway, hopefully you'll call back. But anyway, so looking at this itself, it says Isabel Smith suggests that they follow a predetermined plan carried out regardless of topography. Usually topography is draped on the side of hills. Size varies considerably from less than a hectare, 3 acres, 2.5 acres at Rybury in Wiltshire, to over 20 acres at Windmill Hill and at Hambledon Hill. Fascinating, amazing, enigmatic landscapes. Beautiful image from historic England here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to sort of, there's a lot in the way of Causewayed enclosures in this text that I'm reading directly out of ancient Britain. No apology for that, because obviously there's a lot of discussion I'll bring into this as well. But it's one of the things that we do know about these sites. This is actually a direct plan of Windmill Hill. It's a really nice plan, this is. And this plan of Windmill Hill, you can clearly see the string of sausages. Now, I want to say two things at this point. If we go back to the other image, and say the first thing, that this is obviously being used and revered as a landscape of connection with your ancestors and their burial tradition for a very, very long time, because lots of those mounds on there are Bronze Age, and obviously the smaller they are, the more Bronze Agey they are. And it's very likely that people throughout the ages, not just from visitors from the Bronze Age and visitors from the Iron Age, but people from the Roman era would have gone to these places and revered them and understood them. And the reason why I'm saying that, quite simply, is because if you've got a landscape where the burials are intact, relatively intact, until our barrow diggers get their teeth into them, it means that people throughout the ages have revered them as places of respect rather than places of loathing. And what I'm trying to get at is that if you think about the medieval world and how the medieval people used to see, for example, places like Stonehenge and the stones there, and Avebury and Stanton Drew and Castlereagh and the Ring of Brodgar and all these other places, medieval people didn't like them, and they would deliberately go out their way to damage sites such as Stanton Drew, damage sites such as Avebury, damage sites such as Stonehenge. But for some strange reason, they didn't go to these sites and fill the ditches in and fill the mounds and get rid of the mounds and use it primarily just for agriculture. And I think there's something in that, don't you think so? That we've got that. And the other thing as well is, if we go back to that other image, there's something that stands out about these Causewayed enclosures that is very obvious, more obvious than you think. So if we zoom out of that again, and we go to here, what is obvious is that you've got the ditches in the middle. Now, that ditch there that says X 17 on the left hand side, that's a long ditch. But then again, there might be a reason for that. Or then again, it might have been that they decided to just cut it through, right? And I believe, and some other archaeologists believe, that this string, these ditches were created, each of the ditches representing a family. That may have been a big family, X 17, and number 11. We're looking on the inner circle, by the way, the inner concentric circle. That may have represented a small family. And what it is, these were dug to put human remains in them. The human remains that had come from the center, from the platforms in the center where people were exposed. And then whatever bits of body you've got left, you would put them in your ditch, and your skull might go in your ditch, or your skull might be placed on a spike or then when you want to take the skull off and put it in a ditch, you would leave it there. I know we're going to come to this, but one of the things that our ancestors, there you go, Pete, you know what that is at the bottom. One of the things that our ancestors could not bear, and we know this, is the death of young children. And why do I sound surprised there? I'm not surprised, but the past is a window that we are still learning about. And when we think about this window, we're only looking out with a border around it. We're only seeing what's in front of us. We're not seeing what's around, you know, we're only seeing a little bit of it. And in many ways, some of us believe, and I'm not saying you guys, but there's a few people watching online as well. Some of us might believe that people in the past were just barbarians. They ran around in skins and all the rest of it, right? I saw an English heritage illustration on a leaflet which I burned the other day. I was so appalled by it, and it showed that people at these sites went around in animal skins and had clubs and stuff. And I thought, hang on a minute, in these lectures we've been talking about nettle shirts and clothing and other items of clothing. Otzi the Iceman, did he wear a bearskin? Well, he had a bearskin hat, but he didn't wander around with a club. And these images were these people were more connected to our understanding today than we think. And what we do see in these ditches is that they couldn't expose their babies or their young children on these platforms. When I say it was even abhorrent to them, they couldn't deal with it like we couldn't deal with it. My wife suffered a miscarriage. I know what that's about, but the fact of the matter is, it's very difficult to deal with, and what they did, they buried them in the ditches. They could not expose them. They actually buried them. So that's really important. They actually buried them. Now, this is a bit of a mixture lecture, really, because I'm darting in and out of this and that, but it's all the same subject, so I can get away with that. Now, sometimes, if you think of this is actually sort of a reconstruction of what Windmill Hill sort of looked like. For me, it's not. I'll explain why that is in a moment. But if any of you ever want to see Windmill Hill, right, don't care about the weather, right? So you park, if I can get this right, on the left-hand side of the screen, and there's the road, right? So you park on the left-hand side of the screen. It's a bit of a car park. You go up a narrow sort of lane, and you go into the field, and you look there, right? And I'm thinking, don't be worried about the weather and stuff, because it's part of the experience and part of the understanding of the genre of this plethora of sites. And if we again look at all these images that we got here. I don't know why they suddenly appeared on the screen. So let's dart back into that one there. Loving it. So what an archaeologist has done, they have tried to allow you into what they think these Causewayed enclosures were about, right? Personally, Causewayed enclosures have developed over time. Some were used for 100 years, some were used for 200 years. But in that 200 years, you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different generations. And going back to the point that I made earlier on, right? If this inner circle represented individual families in a community, then the community is growing, because the other concentric circle represents an extension of the community within the landscape. Now, again, I'm going on the flow, so if anyone wants to say anything, don't, because I'm really into it. When we're looking at this, for me as I'm looking at this, and you know, this was dedicated, this is dedicated to the forefathers of the site. This is dedicated to those who were in the community first, right? Now, I'm going to start using words like family community, right? Family community. So basically, each of those ditches represented a family within a community, right? Family community, right? When more people move into the landscape and want, for example, their own ditch, right? It's no longer a family community landscape. It's a collective community landscape. Collective community. So if those of you have done your politics and they know communism and socialism, collective community, where you can't just base your community on family groupings now. It's got bigger. And then you think about collective community, you think about community, right? The overall community. And then when you start to see other things are done, bigger things are done as part of the community, not family community, not collective community, but family community, where things are evolving to. And then when you start to evolve, what happens when you start to evolve? You actually start to get patriarchies or matriarchies. Thank you, Margaret. So basically, you've got stages. These actually tell you stages of how the world is developing around them. And then that brings me directly into this, the world around them. Now, for me, I don't like this because it's probably showing too many trees. And for me, at this stage, the trees themselves would have been very much felled. And I don't like the word forest, it's woodland. There would have been very little forest there. It would have been a woodland. But that's me being pedantic, sorry. When somebody's drawing this, maybe what they're doing is showing maybe what the final expression of this landscape was. Move the trees, because this is an agricultural landscape. So lots of those trees would have been gone by then. And then the archaeologist or historian, whoever's drawn this, and oh God, I don't have the reference for this, who did this, but let's not be picky. They've thought, right, what we've got zones of socialization, white meat, red meat, death and nature. What the hell does all that mean? Personally, I don't go with socialization. It's a land of our ancestors, land of death. It's a land of burial. At some of these sites, you do actually find bones. You find pig bones, you find deer bones, you find cattle bones. Not really sure about the sheep, but and you see these in some of the ditches, but not all of these causewayed enclosure sites. Now, it's very dangerous when we've already read the idea of predetermined plan carried out regardless of topography. I don't think Isabella Smith is actually saying that somebody went around the country telling people that this was what you were meant to do. I think it's quite sensible, because I think it's quite sensible for me that you start off with an inner circle, right? Circles, Pete doesn't need to say this, nobody else needs to say this. Circles are very important to society. The idea of the circle, the circle of life, it goes without saying. It's a no-boner. It's there, right? So and in society, you've got henge monuments, which we've done, those ditches and banks with an entrance in and an entrance out, or whatever you want to look at it. You've got stone circles, Castlereagh, you've got stone circles. You've got carvings in rock that are circular. Go on, chuck in circular houses, right? The sense of the circle is dominating a landscape. So the idea of the and this carried on into the Bronze Age as well. So you've got this inner causewayed enclosure, it's enclosing, right? And in many ways, when you get to this, I think the answer to this is that maybe later on they may have done these things, but to me, it's all about death. It's all about ancestors. It's all about revering your loved ones and revering your dead. These people had no time to mourn, right? You know, for example, right, I've had a little bit of a taste of it living in the countryside, right? I've had we've got a burial ground here, and I've only been I've been here 2 years, right? And it goes quick, doesn't it? And we've buried probably about 40 animals, and we've had some weeks where we get an animal die, and the next day we get another one die, and the next day we get a favorite one of our animals die, and we've got to bury it. And we can't wait around. We got to bury these things. We've got to get them, and we've got to bury these things. These people expose their loved ones, right? But I've got to bury these creatures. I haven't got time to mourn because I got all these animals to look after. And I look back and I think, oh my God, that's terrible. I didn't spend much time with that animal when it died or whatever, right? And I feel terrible. But on a greater gravity, right? I don't need to survive on what I'm doing here to live, right? But these people did. Right, so somebody dies, you might not even have time to bury them, and the idea of burials to these people was abhorrent. Burying people underground was terrible, right? They and cremating remains, unless you're bloody Irish, was also terrible, right? And so what you did, you took your loved ones into the center here, where we've got lots of evidence of post holes, lots of evidence of little bits of bones. The bones have been pecked at by birds and ravens and crows and all the rest of it. And then you've put the person there, and you've gone back home at night and you've cried your eyes out, because these people cried. They had feelings, right? And then you go back a month later and you pick up what's left of the long bone, and the skull, right? And then you'd put them in your ditch, right? And there's something else about this as well. I'm chucking so much in because I'm thinking I'm going to forget it, right? They in the ditches, in some of the ditches, right? What you do find, right? So if we go back to the primary family community, when archaeologists have excavated some of these ditches, they don't find anything in them. They don't find a sausage. Sorry, there was a pun there, right? They don't find anything in them. There's no bones, there's no pottery, there's nothing in them. But the one alongside, there's bones, there's a long bone, there's a skull. In the other one, you're going to find pottery, long bone, skull, and the full remains of a child, right? Going back to the ditch, there's nothing, right? That means that these people I've forgotten to give you a little fact. These ditches are so clean, right? They've been cleaned out. There's nothing in them. They've been physically cleaned out, right? And how do we know there's anything in there anyway? Well, you don't find ditches with nothing in them, absolutely at all, nothing in them. And all the ditches around the side, there's loads of stuff in them, right? It doesn't happen in archaeology. I'm sorry, it don't. Right, it's a bit like having 20 cars in a row, right? You leave them 10 years and there's dust in all of them except the one in the middle, because somebody went in the one in the middle and they cleaned it out, right? That's what they did. It's a bit strange that there's dust in all of them, but the one in the middle, and by lack of evidence, we know there's activity going on there. That's a really important point. Really good learner in archaeology. Lack of evidence is sometimes an event or an activity. So it's the same as a murderer, right? Somebody murders somebody, right? And there's no fingerprints anywhere, right? Well, deliberately, the murderer's gone in there and removed the fingerprints. That's a clue to who they are, right? So this is a clue to what these are about. And the development, these enigmatic wonderful sights. What we need is a skull, don't we? I told you this is going to be gory, and I know I got really gory earlier on, but that's life. We've got all of these things to go through, and there's lots. And what I'm trying to do, or is the image of the skull not here? It please be here. Hang on a minute. Go back out. Where's the image of the skull? There it is. Why am I getting it on the screen like that? It's naughty. This is not really helping me out. There's the image of the skull. There it is. Love it. Most excavation of causeway enclosures has concentrated on the ditches, which are usually some 3 meters wide and seldom less than 1.5 meters deep. Erosion and all the rest of it has happened. And remember, these are on the sides of hills. Now, one of the things about being on the side of a hill is erosion. And there's lots of natural factors going on and so on. But that's a really important point. And you know, when we mentioned, and I've put another point in there. When we find ditches that we don't find anything in them, and it's draping on the side of a hill, there's something else has happened. Everything's been taken out and they've backfilled it, because if they hadn't backfilled it, there would be stuff in it. It would be eroded into it because it's on draping on the side of a hill or whatever, right? There would be natural erosion. So all of these pointers and dynamics are important to understanding what these sites are about. We will have a break in a moment, except I don't want to, but I think I'm going to need a break because my voice is going to wear out. So I will have a break in a few moments, and I will leave at a point that I can get straight into it. But we will ask questions as well. Where more than one ring of ditches occurs, the outer ring is usually the deepest, as at Windmill Hill and the Trundle. Right, so we've got to go back out of there. Right, we've got to go. Let's go back to Windmill Hill. Windmill Hill. So the outside, and actually, if we go to this, you can actually clearly see the outside ditch is deeper. And why is that deeper? Because you know, things have changed. None of these ditches are contemporary. It is not clear if each circuit of ditch is contemporary with its neighbour. I believe it's not. As some enclosures may have increased their size as their importance grew. Well, there's only way the importance can grow because the community has grown. So that goes without saying, really. At Eton, the very eminent Francis Pryor of Time Team and Flag Fen Excavations has suggested that only a few segments of ditch were dug at any one time. I think I don't need to say what that means, but they're dug for a purpose. So what does he exactly mean by this? Let's see what he says. Not me, he, Francis Pryor. Although the ditches were basically the quarries for bank material, it is clear that they had a part to play in the activities at the site, tick, since they were cleaned out on a number of occasions, tick. Even so, excavations show that they frequently contain large quantities of domestic rubbish. Now, and that's another point as well. In some of these ditches, you find rubbish. So where they may have actually been used to put human remains in, then what's happened is that everything's taken out, and then other stuff is put in there. Other times you get human remains and rubbish. And what's the rubbish? Well, this usually consists of layers of animal bones, especially cattle, pigs, deer, and some sheep as well, mixed with fragments of pottery, vegetable refuse, and charcoal, broken flints, and the occasional dead dog and human bones. Now, the dead dog has thrown me there because I actually forgot that was there, but that's actually thrown me about the dead dog. But then again, why not? Because actually, if you've got a dog and you love that dog, there's no better place than to put it in the family ditch. Whether there's rubbish in it, put it in the family ditch. And that's the point. The dog has been deliberately taken there. It hasn't just rolled up in a ball and gone to sleep in the ditch and died, right? Maybe there might be one example of that. But the dog's been deliberately taken there. And that's really, really important to think like that. Often this rubbish was carefully covered with soil as though to reduce the smell of rotting garbage. Well, right, okay, there's a lot going on here. That's a good point. And actually, I'm going to use that point and say, actually, that when you think about that, you're putting human remains into a ditch. You might cover it over. You're obviously covering over the remains of the child because it's not exposed. You want to cover it up, you know. It's you know, and you've the other thing as well is, you know, bones with meat on them do really smell, and they yeah, they really do. And you know, I can yeah, I smelt rotting human flesh. It's not a nice smell. And but we're talking about animal flesh as well. So obviously the idea that you, after you put some of the family bones into the ditch, and there might be a little bit of flesh on them, whatever, you've filled it over. But then you've gone back a few months later and taken your bones out, and you've buggered off somewhere else to join another community. And it happens to be that that other community has a Causewayed enclosure. But as you're no longer part, not as you're no longer as one of the first people within that community, you've added yourself to that community. You're going to be you're now going to be having a ditch within the outside circle. And in some of these examples, we do believe that maybe Maiden Castle, the great 50-acre site, Maiden Castle, which has got it, you know, it's a, was it a mile in circumference around the top? Was it 1 kilometer? I think it's 1 kilometer, 1 mile around the top. This is the area, the circumference of Maiden Castle. And it's likely that that had two Causewayed enclosures once, because Maiden Castle is made up of two hillocks. And then it was joined together to make one big site. So Maiden Castle in Dorset, near Dorchester, may have actually had two Causewayed enclosures. So certain mindsets and ideas with these sites changed in some areas, but in other areas, the connection is inevitably linked with death, and linked with connection with those loved ones that you've lost. So, strangely enough, we got quite a bit to go through still, and which is good actually, because it means that I was right to do this over 2 classes. So what we're going to do, we are going to have some questions now. We are going to have a 15-minute break, and I'm going to completely panic now to try and find out what that call was about, but that's life. And we're going to see if there's any questions. If you all keep your questions brief, because I've still got a bit of light, so I'm going to probably go outside and just check everybody's in bed. So that's what I'm going to do, and put the kettle on as well. So let's just get off. So I'm going to remember to go back to there, wherever I was. And here we go. Oh, David, first face I see. David, anything you want to say before we put the kettle on?
No, thank you.
You're looking well, Dave. Right. Who's right? We've got a shelf there. I don't know who the shelf is. Peter.
No,
yeah,
no,
just...
nothing to add. No.
Oh, bloody hell, Peter, you said that in a strange Dorset accent. Oh, that's both Peters done. Should we have a woman next?
Can I ask a question, Carl?
No, you can't. Adam. No, right, Peter, what do you want?
Just briefly, how after they put what was remains of the skeletons in the ditches and covered them, how deep, roughly, is there an idea of how deep those ditches would have been? Was there a standard depth, or was it just?
Yeah, we do have some cross sections of ditches. They're not that deep, but average of about 1.52 meters in depth. But the problem is, because of erosion, right, and because they're draped on the sides of hills and so on, the height, the problem is, right, how do you do the depth, right? Because if it's 2 meters, if it's 1.5 meters deep, and then you've got a little bit of a bank above it, that's technically the ditch from the top of the bank to it's 3 meters.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're talking about surface horizon as it stands now, 1.52 meters deep. However, because of erosion, they could have been a lot deeper. Yeah. So it's how you look at that dynamic. It's
Yeah.
that very interesting dynamic.
Mm.
Okay, thanks. Adam,
No questions, Scott.
right, we're going to line up Del. Get yourself ready, Del, because we're going to ask you. And right, Del, you're after Margaret.
I just find them a bit of a puzzle. Are they always in three, an outer circle, a middle one, and an inner one?
No,
not always.
No, we showed you White Sheet Hill had one set of banks and ditches.
And do they just have one causeway, just one route in? Is there a route in and a route out?
Right. You got the ditch, and you've got you've got one family's ditch. You've got a causeway, one family's ditch, causeway, one family ditch, causeway, one family ditch, causeway.
So it's multiple causeways. I thought there was just one big, almost like a droving road.
No.
Going in and going out.
No, I hope when I was talking about that, that's not what well, I'm gonna say, Margaret, that's not what I said, but I'm glad you asked that question. So basically, think of a string of sausages.
Yeah.
Get 10 sausages, put them in a circle.
Can I just stop you there?
Yeah, go on.
The sausages I thought were little mounds. Are they ditches with a mound over?
Oh, right. Yeah, we should have. Right. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. Good point. That's a really sensible thing. They should be the other way around. No, when you sausage and the little bit of stuff between the sausage. The stuff between the sausage is the causeway, and the sausage itself is the ditch.
Oh, okay, right. I just wondered, the middle bit, the middle circle. I wonder if they took the bodies there, the dead people there, and laid them out in the open first.
Yes, they did. That's what they did.
That's what they did. Oh, that's
because what we've got lots of post holes.
Yeah.
We've got lots of post holes, and in the middle of these things, and there's loads of little bits of bone around them, even in the post holes that they rotted. So that's what's going on. This is how we know they're on platforms and exposing their loved ones on platforms.
Oh, I see. I wonder if they did animal sacrifices.
Well, that would be detectable in the dogs and stuff, but I've not actually come across that. And this is not a type of world where they had time. The thing is, right, a dog would be quite valuable, and anything would be quite valuable. Sacrifice? No, I'm not for that. No. Maybe later on when they got loads of cattle and pigs and stuff, and you want to go down that avenue, which I don't, right? You can go down that avenue, but in the initial stages, this is about survival. This is about these are about families getting together to try and make the best of the landscape, right? Every single thing counts. Every second counts, right? This is what these are about. Think about the first people there that create the Causewayed enclosures, not the people who may have used them 400 years later. The first people, that's what we're interested in. That's what we're focused on, them.
Yeah. I just imagined they were a little bit like the Iron Age forts that were built up in stages, but these were not necessarily built up.
No, this was developed. Yeah, the word developed is the more sort of banks and ditches radiating. And there is one other point that to be made. If we want to compare with, there's a white elephant in the room straight away. If you want to compare this with something like Avebury. People used to say that there were 90 large stones directly inside the outer bank within Avebury. When there's lots of evidence to say that probably half of them never held a stone at all. Right now, if you think about some of these ditches, maybe somebody thought, right, okay. If we take the idea that they were done in there was a ditch dug, and then another family moved in, another ditch dug, there might actually be the principle that maybe a group of people thought, okay, what we're going to do, right? We're going to actually pre-dig these ditches, but there's no evidence for that. But that might be a possibility. What it might be, there might have been like a small, like there's 3 families, and they thought, all right, what we'll do right? We'll dig an extra 5 ditches, and nobody ever moved in, and the community died out. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. But obviously, over time, that you can't tell. You can't tell. When you've got a ditch, you can't tell me that that ditch was replicating the original activity of what was going on at the site. Maybe what happened is that the ditch itself was used, or was used, or other ditches were just left vacant, and then they were used 100 years later. We don't know the sequence, and this is why these are so wonderful. It's a bit like a hill fort. There's loads going on, you know. Right. Okay. I'm gonna quickly. There's 3 people, and then I need a break. Pat.
Nothing for me. No, thank you. No questions.
Yeah. Anything you want to say, but keep it brief.
Well, I might slip away at 9.
Right, I'm on now.
What? I'd say that again, Pat. What time are you slipping away?
9:30 probably.
Okay, if you do slip away, we're all going to say goodbye. Goodbye, Pat, but we'll try to be back on by about 20 past. You've got 10 minutes left. Right, Del, quickly, because I want to break.
Yeah, it reminds me of those big stone round towers they've got. The Zoroastrian religion in Iran. Because they perform air burials.
Right, yeah, not Brock, not at all. But air burials, yeah.
And, you know, the crows and eagles and birds come in and take the bits, basically.
I think that's a good way to go. Well, seeing as I absolutely love crows, right? Yeah, give my body to a crow. I love crows. Right, Andy, quickly, go on, love. Anything you want to say?
Thanks.
Okay. We're going to take a break now until 20 past. I've got 12
Thank
minutes.
you, Carl. I'm off now.
Oh,
all right, Del. Okay, well, Del's got to
I've got to sort Jessie out.
All right, Del. Well, if you want to come back on, we'll be still here until 10. But if not, Del, we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye, Del.
Cheers,
Bye,
Del.
Del.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Del. Right, guys, I'm going to take my break now. See you in a minute.
Just having a 10-minute break.
Just so you know, if you look at your favourites or background in the web, so we've gone for a compromise position on the museum type.
Mm.
I'm going to the British Museum on Saturday. Andy, what should I look at?
If go and have a look at the Sutton Hoo.
Oh, yes.
You have to see that.
Yeah.
And then you've got things like there's the Rosetta Stone and things as well in the Egyptian stuff. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I've never been before, so that would be interesting.
they've got some really good Roman mosaics in there as well. But I seem to remember they're in a stairwell on the wall.
All right.
But they might not be now. It's a while since I've been in there now. So
yeah.
They had some Stone Age stuff in the
oh, lovely
Liverpool Museum, so which was really nice. One right down by the dockside.
Oh, I don't know. We'll get there. We're going to the Natural History Museum as well.
Right. We got the Science Museum opposite or right next to it.
Yeah.
The Natural History Museum as well.
Well, if we get time.
Yeah, so they're big museums, all of them.
Yeah.
There's a Foden truck on the ground floor in there, designed by my grandfather.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
A what truck?
Foden.
What's that?
Foden's the make.
I've never heard of it.
No, they're kind of like considered to be like the Rolls Royce of trucks.
Wow.
So they ceased trading in, I think, the 1960s.
Yeah.
Sandbach in Cheshire.
Right.
But it's the only one in there. He
and
designed
is it name in prominent letters?
I don't think his name is. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. But he designed it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, clever man.
Yeah. Yeah. I went there when I was 10 with my mum and dad and my little brother.
Yeah.
And we showed us that, and then he went upstairs to the in the top floor. Then had all the aeroplanes and aero engines, and he said, "Oh, I designed that jet engine because my dad used to work for Rolls Royce."
Wow!
Right, and I thought, "Wow!" And then he said, "See that little bolt there? I did that." And I thought that was a bit too much information, Dad. I could have just left it at jet engine. That would have done.
yeah. Yeah, impressive.
So me and my brother feel terrible because we haven't done anything that's in there.
You didn't fancy going into engineering like you?
I was not really that academic. Yeah, I love engineering. I've taken many things to pieces and put them back together again.
Yeah.
But, no, I was never really clever enough at the maths and the physics side. So my brother wasn't interested in it. So.
Weren't you in engineering, David?
Yes, yeah.
And you were something to do with Concorde, weren't you?
Originally, yes.
Right.
Then I came to Barrow on the submarines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So you must have been good at maths and physics then.
Well, I was very interested in physics.
My dad loved it. He did his engineering in Liverpool in the 50s and then went to Rolls-Royce on a graduate apprenticeship.
Right.
Working on it was the Conway engine that he worked on. And then he went to English Electric when they were doing the Lightning and the Deltic diesel, which he just thought, and I thought, we went to Causewayed and looked at all the jets because I like my piston engine aeroplanes and the very first jets, which were really quite exciting. And then I get a bit bored after that, apart from Concorde, which I've seen many times, love it. But, and I thought, that must have been a really exciting period to be in aero engineering.
That much going on.
Yeah, really.
First all stainless steel aircraft then.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
188.
Yeah. Stainless steel aircraft, that must have been heavy.
Yes. Well, to make them very thin.
Yeah. I got a bolt out the TSR2 when they were stripping that down. They had some at end and in the back. You could pay 50p and get one. I thought, I've got to have one of them.
Was a Bristol Bramazon stainless steel then?
Yes.
Ah, that's why it was so heavy.
That was a
No,
big.
sorry, no, it wasn't.
No, it was aluminium, wasn't it? Yeah,
Aluminium, yeah.
or
Oh, right,
alloys.
okay.
Yeah, it was a very big aeroplane. That.
Mm.
They built a special hangar for it.
Mm.
And
Oh,
well, it was all, half of it was offices when I was there. And
Wow.
wow.
you could tell all the engines named after rivers are Rolls Royce, and all the ones named after gods, like Olympus and Orion, and are ex-Bristol.
Ah, right.
Yeah, David.
You learn something every day.
Hey, that's a fact. Oh, that's a fact for a quiz, isn't it? Oh, I could win $1 million on that. Oh, wicked. Anyway, thanks for that,
supposed to be an exhaust valve from a Griffin.
Right.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, well, it is. It's an aero engine one. It's beautifully engineered.
Yeah.
But from the serial number, they told me that that's what it was. A friend gave me it. But they're quite collectible now.
Good.
Then they were building Bristol cars.
Yeah.
Crankshaft for a Bristol engine, a car engine, was 400. I think it was 80 pounds. It was more than a Mini.
Wow, I didn't know they were that heavy. That's astonishing.
480 pound cash.
Oh, cash to buy, yeah.
Yeah, just for a crankshaft.
No, Andy.
Thought I'd be blooming heavy. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
they last a bit longer though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Some nice cars, Bristols.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, that's brilliant. I'm glad we had that talk. Right.
You can see that.
Yeah.
That's me event pass.
Oh, right.
For Eurovision.
Yeah. Did you get to go in and see any of the performers?
No, the British one was actually staying in our hotel, so we didn't need to. I kept seeing these people going past. I mean, yeah, so lots and lots of people going past. I thought one guy with like doing black and green suits and like really short, weird hair, and I thought, God, these people do half get carried away. And then I realized I saw him on the news the next night. That was one of the performers. But yeah, no, I didn't go in. Funnily enough, a friend that we used to live with and we're at college with was the stage manager for the floor manager for the show. So I probably could have blagged away him, but it was so chaotic.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So many people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I used to obviously like working and living in London. I got used to crowds and things, but since I've been back up here, it's the first time I've been back in a place that was really crowded.
Yeah, a bit scary.
Didn't like it.
No.
Too many people.
Yeah.
Okay, it could be worse.
Oh, you got it.
What?
The photograph of Benjer's goalpost. I just seen it come up.
Yeah, I know you did, Pete.
What's that?
Oh,
it came up on yours.
We're never going to get on with the bloody lecture at this minute. Oh, right, okay. Where's Benjer's goalpost? Right, okay. That's not him with the images there. Oh God.
It came up just a second ago.
Yeah, do you know what? I've
Pete,
lost all the images now.
Pete,
God.
you're expecting some order here.
Oh, who's he?
There.
In the trench.
That's it, yeah.
Got a light.
Oh, yes, yeah, flat-o, yeah.
That's Benjer's goalpost to stop the young man with his 4.5-inch anti-aircraft gun
coming down too low.
The lighthouse.
You'd think he'd see a lighthouse, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but he's been told that enemy aircraft are coming from the south, so he's got his gun up and he's firing and swinging it around.
Yeah,
he could quite easily shoot the top of the lighthouse, so that's why
that wouldn't be good.
There, so he couldn't. He'd have to raise his gun above it.
Right, folks, we got to
well
crack
spotted.
on.
Oh, all right then.
Crack on. Oh God, we've got to crack on. My God, we're going to be finishing really late tonight if we don't crack on. Right, we're going to crack on. Right, okay, let's go on. All right. Now, thanks for all of that, guys. And we are back with it because I know Pat's got to leave us in a minute. But I would, I made myself very unpopular in the week. I put a video on, right? It had, it was about my granddad bayoneting a Frenchman in the
Yes, I saw that.
yeah, and people were saying, "Oh, your granddad, your great granddad should be put up for war crimes," and thinking it was an honor killing. He shouldn't have cut the rings off the German officer in the first place. Right. Anyway, cracking on. So let's look at this now. And most of the pottery found in these ditches seems to be a certain type and a certain date. And what we're starting to see is that this sort of gradiates us to sort of understand that there's a certain time span that these wonderful sites are actually being used. And what we're going to do now, hopefully, if my other images are here, which they should be, right? Yeah, they're all here. Wicked. There you go. So this gives you some of the parameters of when some of these sites are sort of active. This is actually the site of Crickley Hill, which has got a quite an impressive Causewayed enclosure site at. And it's sort of telling you about different dates when the ditches are in operation. And you can clearly see there that these ditches are being dug at different times, and it's got a time span of roughly 5,600 years ago, going into roughly, there we go, 5,400 years ago. So we got sort of a usage there of somewhere in the region of 200 years. That these sites are actually being operated for, which is quite a number of generations, really. The types of pottery specifically that we're actually finding at these sites is a type of Neolithic pottery, which we'll look at again, which have got rounded bottom pottery. And what we are finding with some of these sites is numerous axes with them, some using non-local stone. And we're actually, with some of these sites in Wiltshire as well, there's a certain type of pottery that's coming from Cornwall. So it's been traded all the way over to Wiltshire from Cornwall. So slowly but surely, we're actually starting, as Margaret said, these sites are extremely complex. And when we look at this plan in front of us, we will see that these sites are quite numerous. So what we've got, the dark black circles are actually definitely identified as Causewayed enclosures. This is in the Cotswolds.
Carl?
This is in the Cotswolds. Right, Andy, yeah?
Is there any chance you can rotate it so it can be bigger?
Oh, hang on a minute. Right, okay, it's oh god, what have I just pressed? Right, for some reason, Andy, it's not letting me do it.
Okay, no worries.
Oh yeah, I can rotate it. Hang on a minute. If we go there, hang on a minute. Well, I can rotate it. There we go.
Yeah, that's better.
And
Nice one.
And what we got there, you see, we got that there, and we got that
with a 7.
See, I'll do anything for Andy. There you go. We'll do anything for love. Can you see that now? That's in the Cotswolds. You can actually clearly see that in some areas that there's quite a number of them, and ones that we're not really sure about. It's in the Cotswolds. Some are associated with rivers, and you've got one at a place called Langford there as well. And you've got sites of different dates and different time periods in amongst these Causewayed enclosures within a dynamic prehistoric landscape. So lots of the clearly identified Causewayed enclosures that we find across the country, those are the up to 100 that we've identified as definitely being Causewayed enclosures. So the Causewayed enclosures are directly underneath places like originally at Stonehenge. They've not really been identified positively yet. And when we're looking at hill forts like Maiden Castle, if there's 2 at Maiden Castle, that's another 2 on the list. So they've not been massively positively identified, but at one time there were a hell of a lot more of them. I'm not going to say there were as many causewayed enclosures as chapels in Wales at one point, but there were quite a number. And what we're finding is pottery as well. Pottery from Cornwall, a gritty type of pottery from Cornwall, is actually being found at Gloucestershire and places like Sussex. And there's large long distances where items have been moved around and happen to be found at these causewayed enclosure sites. What does that mean? Do they mean votive offerings? Do they mean that they're cooking utensils? Do they mean that people went there one day to have a meal with their loved ones? Does it mean to say that they were deposited there for different reasons other than when the site was a causewayed enclosure? What I'm trying to get at is that these sites were used for a very long period of time, and their interpretation changes. If Margaret, I know you said earlier on that, you know, there's a lot going on and you know, there's a lot of confusion with what's going on. But what you've got to do, Margaret, you've got to think in the way I'm thinking, right? That there was one use for the sky burial, and then obviously that was part of one community, and then the community expanded to a collective community, and maybe people may have had one or two feasts there, and bowls might be for other reasons. But when you think about it, these, because of the long length of time that these are being used for, there's a hell of a long range to understand what was actually going on at these sites. So what I'd like to do is deserving particular attention are the human remains found in the ditches. Lots of archaeologists get obsessed with the human remains in these ditches. Well, we've done quite a lot. We've looked at quite a lot of stuff in regards to these sites. So when we come to back to causewayed enclosures in a few weeks' time, it'll be a little bit more refreshing that we've actually done some of this. So what I'm going to try and do now is look at that. All the images are the right way round. Andy, what have you done? Right, okay. Andy's like sort of, he's jinxed it. It's sort of everything seems to be the right way round, right? But there is one thing, the other images that I want, I can't find them. Oh my God, this is really not going well. Hang on a minute. We've got that lighthouse. We don't want that. Hang on a minute. Let's just see. I can't, cross section of a ditch. Yeah, we'll use that one. Right, okay. So we've got a nice cross section of a ditch, which we'll explain in a little bit of detail in a few moments. This is one of Alistair Whittle's excavations at Windmill Hill, Wiltshire. But if we think about this, the deserving attention in these ditches that have actually been clearly excavated, and you can see all the different complex layers in this ditch. A large number of human skulls have been recorded in these ditches. Not all ditches have got human skulls, only some of them, but the large number has been recorded anyway. Some of them lacking the lower jaws. So we did a little bit of detail earlier on. We sort of said, well, you know, if you get a human skull and you've still got some of the brain material in there, which is going to be the last to rot, you get the optical, and you place the stake through the optical at the back of the skull, and that then goes through the skull, and maybe that might displace the jawbone drops off. But one of the things is we just find the skulls without jawbones. So obviously at one stage the jawbones have been disinherited from the skulls. Reading back to this book, so when we think about Hambledon Hill, for example, what we do see is that the skulls have been deliberately placed. They've not just been chucked in the ditches; they've been deliberately placed in the ditches. That's really important to say that, because when we looked at this earlier on, and we said there's lots of rubbish and there's lots of bones, it gives the impression that people are going, "Hiya, Grandad. Right, sorry, we'll put somebody else on the stake now and we'll chuck your skull in the ditch." It wasn't like that at all. The skulls were lovingly placed at the bottoms of ditches, like the skull that we saw a few moments back, which if I try to get to that, we're going to lose these slides. So I don't know what's happened this week with my slides, but there you go. So when we go to Hambledon Hill, what we do see, one of the ditches have been excavated. they've been deliberately placed on the ditch floors. And, you know, the author says, as though to ward off evil. Obviously, they're not there to ward off evil, but they're just sort of lovingly placed there. They're deliberately placed there. Others of these skulls are more casually scattered and mixed with other human bones, suggesting that they may have been swept into the ditch in a cleaning operation. Well, that's against what I've just said, but that goes with what I've said earlier on, that maybe at times when the ditches were left open, and as with erosion and they're trying to clear the site, maybe some ad hoc bones ended up in lots of these ditches. So there's also different ways of looking at these, but when you think about the skulls being lovely placed into the bottoms of the ditches, that's really, really important. So when we, this next point is key to what the key to the operation of this lecture. So if we go back to the plan, and this ties in with everything that we're doing, right? Go back into the center. We can actually see a few post holes there being indicated in the center. Is that part of a platform? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. So it goes, when we think about this, if we're thinking about that previous statement, with some ditches suggesting that they may have been swept into the ditch in a cleaning operation, that's the bits of bones. If this is the case, then it is likely that they originated in the center of the enclosure, where corpses may have been exposed, perhaps on platforms and allowed to decay. So that's the point that I keep making. I don't mind anyone disagreeing with this. I would like them to disagree. I'd like other people to come up with different theories, but this is something that we've been stuck with like a gramophone record for a very, very long time in archaeology, well, some of us anyway. Going back to that statement, Roger Mercer, who writes about these sites, prehistorian blokey. Roger Mercer has written on the central enclosure at Hambledon Hill, describing it as, here we go, a vast, reeking, open cemetery, its silence broken only by the din of crows and ravens. I think that's dramatic, but the smell is definitely there. The reeking, a vast, reeking, open cemetery, referring to the smell of these and at these sites. However, they've got different tolerances to smells back then. So, you know, that's him saying it. Back then, they may have related to these smells differently. This implies that Causewayed enclosures played a far greater part in the funeral ritual of Neolithic Britain than have other hitherto been realized. In Iron Age times, human heads were collected as trophies and stored as prized possessions. It is perhaps worth wondering if a similar cult existed in the Neolithic period. Well, not in the same way, because people didn't have time to fight and have warfare in the Neolithic period. We don't have much in the way of evidence of anyone being killed, anyone. You could talk about Otto the Iceman, but we'll just forget him for a minute. We don't see evidence of battles or warfare or anything like that in the Neolithic period. That's sort of something that occurs in the Iron Age. So this, and when you think about it, the population in Britain at this stage was around 1.5 million people. If you think of the population of Britain's 70 million, and I'm living here, and the only chance I've had to see people today is two lorry drivers with a solar panel and a lead, right? I could be here for a whole year and never see a single person, right? Now, and that's with a population of Britain with 70 million. Right? If you've got a population of 1.5 million, it's likely that you would never see another group of people in your entire life, right? So there's no chance for warfare, really. That's my point I'd like to make. Now, Windmill Hill. Now, if we do, I don't know if we're going to get through everything with Windmill Hill today, but we might have to bump start that next time. I'm not exactly sure. But child burials seem to have had a special place in this ritual, and this is directly referring to these trenches in red. At Windmill Hill, the deliberate burials of 2 young children were found in a ditch, together with the skulls of 3 more. At Whitehall, the excavator found the ashes of a hearth containing fragments of 5 skulls. That's very rare to find cremations at this stage, all of them of young people between 6 and 20, but not rare at this stage if they're children. Now, I said earlier on, it's abhorrent to expose your children, right? But you might enter into the idea, and it's really, Neolithic people didn't burn people, but there's evidence at Whitehall in Sussex that they did indeed cremate some of their young people, because the idea of burying a child, or the idea of anything like that, was far too difficult for them to bear. And obviously younger bones are easier to burn than adult bones. In the same ditch section was the complete skeleton of a young mother with a newborn child. Child burials also occur in the ditches at Hambledon Hill, where they accounted for 60% of the burials. Some lay crouched in the ditch bottom with cairns of flints above them. At the same site, the lower trunk of a 15-year-old boy had seemingly been dragged into a ditch, perhaps by animals, whilst the flesh was still upon it. Now, that's rather interesting. It's a 15-year-old boy. That's maybe at the stage where the boy is an adult. We'll read that again. At the same site, the lower trunk of a 15-year-old boy had been dragged into a ditch, perhaps by animals, whilst the flesh was still upon it. Now, that's interesting, that maybe a wolf or a fox or something like that got into the site and dragged the remains of the child from the platform and feasted upon it in one of the ditches. Maybe that could be, maybe it's not. Complete adult skeletons have also been found at some sites in Sussex, Oxford, and Middlesex. That's interesting. We got complete adults as well, but that's very rare at Causewayed enclosure sites. Probably the best known example of a Causewayed enclosure is, in fact, this one, and it's been well investigated. It's 1.5 miles northwest of Avebury in Wiltshire. It's well worth a visit. 3 roughly concentric rings. Here we go. If we go back to the 3, hang on, let's go with the aerial view. There we go. 3, there it is. There we got 3 rings. You've got the one in the middle, that's clear, the middle circle, and the outer concentric circle. So if we go and do a little bit of comparison, and if we do a bit of comparison, this comparison chart, there we go. And the Windmill Hill is the one on the left. 3 roughly concentric rings of causeway ditches circle a low hilltop. And again, going back to that, and the outer ditch has a diameter of 365 meters, and the mean diameter of the middle ditch is 200 meters, whilst the inner measures about 85 meters diameter. The ditches do not follow the contours of the hill. Instead, they hang lopsidedly down the steeper northern hill slope. They may not all be contemporary. That's what we've been saying. Alistair Whittle suggests that the outer ditch may have been added later, which is what I would say. All the ditch sections are very irregular and very considerable in size. Excavation by Alexander Keeler, who's one of the great excavators at Avebury, between 1925 and 1938 showed them to be flat-bottomed. So if we go to that image, which sort of shows a pseudo flat-bottomed ditch, flat-bottomed, and deepest in the outer circle and shallowest in the inner ring. Only at the eastern side of the outer circle can any trace of the bank now be seen, though the ditches showed that it was present inside all the ditches. We shall probably never know if it was topped by a stockade, thus making it defensive. Well, I'm not going to go with defensive at all. How can you defend something like this with lots of breaks in it? Many fragments of early Neolithic pottery were found at this enclosure, some in this ditch in front of us. Nearly 1/3 of it had been made from Jurassic clays from Frome and Bath, which is 20 miles away from Windmill Hill. How such a fragile material was carried to Windmill Hill remains a mystery. It may have been made locally using that clay, it's likely. Also deliberately buried in the ditches were domestic objects at Windmill Hill, such as flint scrapers, stone axes, and animal bones, suggesting some form of settlement, either temporary or permanent, as well as the skeletons of the 2 children mentioned were also found at Windmill Hill. So there are a variety of interpretations for these sites, other than the ones I've mentioned, right, which we've got to do. I've got to try and do this in a biased and an unbiased way, or whatever you want to call it. Right, so what I am going to do is I'm going to mention a little bit more about this Windmill Hill site. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at these images in sequence. And if we go with this and we go to here, so for over a century, the Causewayed enclosures have defined an increasing part of the research in early Neolithic Britain. So lots of research has been undertaken in these, and these are very enigmatic. Trying to understand these and trying to wonder what these are about is a very interesting pastime of archaeology. So what we're going to do, I need to explain what this means, right? So what we've got from there. So these red ones have been particularly excavated in more recent times. Now, the other ones that are given numbers have been excavated at other times, such as the excavations at Alexander Kira from 1925 onwards. What we also know, what we've got is modern technology coming in to confirm the arrangement of this site, not just reliant upon aerial photography. The magnetometer survey that is going to be used to measure depths and understanding arrangements is the ones that are these sort of parallel lines. That's what the magnetometer surveys revealed. And then the physical landscape is, you can see the Houcher lines, these sort of little lines, that's sort of known. This is really showing within the landscape this. So this gives you an impression and an idea of what's going on. So what we do have is these little things here, an array, these little dots, an array of ditches, an array of pits, and 4 post holes. So there's a few around, but these are going to be very difficult to detect, these little things, 1 and 3, and over 39 and 42. So this is what's going on with the sort of the arrangement, and trying to really understand what this overall site is, and then we'll go on to the suggestions. And this trench, we'll go back to that trench again, right? And if we can go to that cross section of the trench. There we go. We can see how complex this is. And whilst we've got this image in front of us, we will read the following out, again from ancient Britain. And you can see how complex that is with various different layers and various different contexts, and each of those numbers is called a context number. So, and when you think about it, that you can think about the surface horizon on the top. You can just see that there's just a slight sort of indentation at the top, indicating there was a ditch below. That's all we've got as an indication within the topographical landscape of there being something. So this is why what we do in archaeology, we do the magnetometer surveys, as we've seen with the earlier plan. So here we go, a variety of, now some of these we agree with, some of these don't agree with. Let's just see what we've got. So this is over that 200, 300 years that some of these sites are being used over. A variety of interpretations of Causewayed enclosures have been offered over the years. Settlement sites and defended camps were first suggested 50 years ago. So if you want to date this book 1990, what you've got to do is add 30 years. So that's 80 years ago. Whoa. This was possibly closer to the truth than has more recently been supposed. Why is that? Now, that's interesting, because it might be that there might be something going on in the later stages of use at these sites, from the arrangement of the pottery and all the other stuff. So later on, I'm going to go with my exposure site. I'm going to go with my ditches are used to put bones and so on. But as the community develops, there's something else going on. So this is where this is coming from. The large quantities of domestic rubbish in the ditches at some of these sites would support an explanation that there might be some kind of habitable activity going on there. The fact that some of the rubbish had come from some distance away led to the idea that the enclosures were centres for periodic fairs and tribal gatherings. So when we look at these and we see groups of people there and they're feasting on bone, flesh and all the rest of it, that's where those images and ideas come from. Moving on, the wealth of animal bones at some of the sites were used to suggest that the sites were corrals where cattle were annually rounded up for branding, gilding and culling. Well, if you want to, you know, even with this enhanced version, right, and we're looking at hang on, I've got to remind myself which one this is. This is oh god, damn, I can't remember which one this is reconstructing. It's just definitely not Windmill Hill. Even this one where you've got lots of the even this one where you've got lots, it seems that the bank has been put together. Even there's lots of breaks in this. So using this as a cattle corral really doesn't make sense. It really doesn't in that reconstruction. And how are you supposed to keep cows in a place like this? They're just going to go all over the place. You know, how are you supposed to keep cows in there when you've got all these? I can't go with it. But then again, you know what we've been doing in archaeology, we've been looking at sites, and I've said, you know, when we've said, for example, in the Mesolithic period, it was a period of period of sedentary living settlements, and some people did hunter-gatherer, some people did both, right? Maybe these sites had loads of different uses in loads of different areas, so that really screws with your head, Margaret. Following the work at Hambledon Hill, the idea of the central area of the enclosures being used as a vast mortuary for the exposure of corpses has proved most popular. Definitely with me. There is no clear answer. When you think about these sites, there's no clear answer with them. You know, it fits all, basically. It is probably wrong to try and see each site as serving the same function, but the various similarities between them perhaps indicate that they were most likely ritual cult centers. I'm gritting my teeth with that one. Where people met at certain times of the year to mourn their dead. Yeah, I'll agree with that one. And celebrate the well-being and fertility of their crops, their animals, and themselves. You know what? I think all that's going on at the same time. I really do. Now, I've got to explain myself. I don't like, Andy knows this. Andy's been with me for a long time. It's 11 years now, Andy. Andy knows that I don't like the idea of people coming together in the past to celebrate things, and the reason why I'm going to make it clear. I'm going to put my cards on the table, right? It's very difficult to look after animals. I've got 3 Borazé sheep. I've got 4.5 acres of land. I got 6 sheep. I got 2 goats. I'm trying to hold down a job. I'm trying to teach you guys. I'm trying to do everything else right. I'm trying to travel and do it, and I find it a struggle. Right now, I really can't go anywhere for too long. Right. So, for example, unless I've got somebody here, I can't go anywhere. I can't spend the night anywhere. I can't do anything. I'm stuck here. Right now, if that's the case with me, and I've got a car, and I've got like there's no wolves around here, and there's very few foxes, and I can keep things into the buildings and hope that nobody comes here nicking my animals, right? All of those things that I've mentioned, foxes and wolves and somebody nicking what you've got and taking your land and all the rest of it, these were things that people lived with every single day of their lives in the Neolithic period. I know I've said there's 1.5 million, but if you've got a nice bit of land, somebody might want it, right? Or if they see you're gone, right, they're going to think, oh, right, I'll have that. There's nobody here anymore. You can't go away to festivals. You just can't. You just can't do it. It's just not possible. You can't take a herd of cattle across the landscape when there's trees and all sorts of things in the road. There's no roadways, right? You can't really stick a huge auroch on a boat. You know what I mean? I don't like this idea of people gathering together, but what I do like is the idea that people mourn their dead. And when they've got a couple of minutes, they can go up there and talk to Grandad, whose head's on the stake, right? And then they're going to go back to doing agriculture. Yeah, the idea of fertility and all the rest of it's good, right? But having different ideas and fitting different things over different periods of time, I'm for it. I like that. I really, really do like that idea. So what we are going to do now, I'm going to say a couple of other things. We're going to do Crickley Hill again, right? And we're going to do Hambledon Hill in Dorset again, and we might do Carn Bray in Cornwall again. So we'll do them again when we do Causewayed enclosures. So I'm going to close my little book on that, right? And I'm going to close my book on that. And what I am going to do is we're just going to probably look at a little bit more about these images. I know I've flicked through lots of times today, right? And we're going to do that, right? We've done that. So marks on bones, cut marks on bones. So this is rather interesting. So I want us to do a little bit of background, and then we're going to call it a day. Just to tell you a little bit more about Windmill. So we're at Windmill. So what we've got at Windmill Hill, by around 5,700 years ago, the dates vary. It may have been completed. So 5,700 years ago, it may have been completed, right? When I say completed, nobody ever sat down 250 years before that and thought, right, what we're going to do, we're going to have 3 concentric circles. That never happened. So in its final form, with the outermost being 365 meters in diameter at Windmill Hill, the causeways interrupting the ditches vary in width from a few centimeters to 7 meters. So in other words, Margaret, right, you've got a ditch and you've got like a couple of centimeters, you've got another ditch, and then you've got another ditch which is 7 meters wide, right? A causeway, right? How are you supposed to keep cattle in if the causeway is 7 meters wide, right? So I'm going to dismiss that one. Material from the ditches was piled up to create internal banks, broken banks that are put together, and so on. The deepest ditches and largest banks are on the outer circuit, which we're thinking about. In the centre, there's some kind of mortuary enclosure, right? Okay, Windmill Hill, scheduled ancient monument, and from 1925, even though it was excavated by Alexander Keeler till 1929. And it's national trust in 1942 and is under guardianship of English Heritage. So it was actually bought by Alexander Keeler, who donated it to the National Trust. And there were excavation seasons, and what we've got is this was the stereotypical site for recognizing it as a causewayed enclosure. So just thinking about what's in them in the pots, you've got something known as Peterborough ware, which we will show you about again. We'll show you some Neolithic Peterborough ware. And obviously in these ditches, we've mentioned large quantities of bones at windmill, human and animal, recovered in the ditch fill for the various different purposes that we mentioned. Grooved ware pottery, later beaker potsherds, that it tells us that the sites were used for a long period of time into the beaker period. So the site with the outer ditch is completed 5,700 years ago, and you get beaker pottery, right, found at this site 1,200 years after the outer ditch was completed, the outer ditches were completed, right? So the site is still being revered, and they start building barrows there. So the site has a use of burial and ritual activity for 2,000 years. Stunning that. And just quickly looking at this, and we're going to finish on this because it is 2 minutes past 10. We're going to finish on this. And by the way, guys, I love the chat about planes and cars earlier on. If you could do a little bit more of that, we'll do a bit more in Roman. It's great. So what I'd like to this is actually one of the ditches. So if we show you where this is now, there's hang on, there's the one on the outer side there. There it is. So we're looking at that. And we've got various evidence in there, and primary silts, the stuff at the bottom, or a mixture of stuff at the bottom. We've got dog's bones, we've got groups of small bones, we've got human bone with the triangles there, the one at the top there. We've got a cattle skull that's been placed in there, cattle horn core. And we've got a bit of antler, we've got pottery in there, if you're looking at the key, as I'm saying, and sarsen pounders, very interesting. It's stones at Stonehenge, made of sarsen stones. And then they're saying that there's another layer. So primary silt, that could be over a long period of time, a few decades, and then activity sort of ceases, and there's another layer above that, secondary silts. And you've got charcoal, you've got in this next layer, you've got sarsen pounders, and you've got bits of you've got antler, you've got all these different things. So there's lots of activity going in specifically with these ditches, and giving you an idea that there's a lot going on at these sites. And at that note, we're going to call that a day. And we will look at Crickley Hill. We'll go to Gloucester and sort of Cornwall next time, Dorset. But it won't be next week, right? We've got something very, very different next week. Again, very different. Barrow diggers. So, right, next. So, okay. So, and we'll have something else next week as well as the barrow diggers. We're coming to the end of the barrow diggers. I think we're in Cornwall next week. Yippee! Doing a lot of Cornwall at this minute. So there we go, and let's do it. Right, okay. Who have we got left? So we've got we will do a Peter, then we'll do a David. Right, Peter, anything?
No, not for me, no.
Okay, now we'll do a David who's in the dark. Right, David, what would you like to say?
No, nothing, thank you.
And David, I love the discussion about planes and cars earlier on. We want a bit of that every week now. Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Good night, you all.
Night, David.
Night.
Night. Right,
Night.
okay. Night, Dave. We'll do the other Pete now.
I was interested in one of your images where it looked like a promontory with a enclosed. It's one of the images you didn't actually put up. You sped by it quite quick.
That's Crickley Hill. Well, that's what we're going to do next time.
Okay, it looks interesting. It looks like one of our enclosed tours we've got here.
Yes, that's what we're doing next time. Actually, do you know what I'm going to do? We'll just check that on the screen. We'll just quickly do this. And hopefully we can get to this straight away. Come on, let's just see. Everything will work fine now. Oh, no, it's side on. It's your fault, Andy. Oh, there we go, that one. So yeah, there's lots of causewayed enclosures like this, and you can clearly see that on the left-hand side, it's sort of draping on the side, and they would be more acute, right? And obviously you've got different stages there, and you've got a long mound there. You've got a long mound as well there on a platform. So that is going to be massively interesting. So we'll do that next time. So right, okay, back to where we were talking about, and we've got to. It's all gone to pot. It's your fault. Okay, right. Who's next? So who's next? Who's next? So Adam.
Nothing to say, Carl. Cheers.
Okay, I think there's only one woman left. We've done the women away. Right, Margaret. By the way, we're all loving your locks tonight.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I missed that. Maybe I didn't hear. But were the earlier burials in the inner?
Yes.
Ditches? So yes. They started in the middle and worked out.
Yes, as more ditches were dug, as the community expanded. So yes.
Okay.
So yes. Right. Okay. Andy, my love, you're the last one tonight, love.
I was just curious about the going back to the Stonehenge. You were saying that they didn't meet up, and I kind of agree with what you're saying, but they claimed that they got feasting there because the amounts of bones and animal remains left over.
My thoughts with this is that I think we should be more specific with what the way we see causewayed enclosures, because it's more of development of these sites, and there's a danger. There's a danger in archaeology that what we sometimes do is we look at a Bethel Baptist church, a chapel in Wales built in 1890, and it's converted into a shop, and then we discuss it being a shop and not its original chapel usage, right? And then we turn up, then it's converted into a mosque, and we say, oh, actually, you know, it was built as a mosque. So what we can't do, Andy, is get obsessed with the feasting and the other stuff that has clearly come later.
Right.
In not all cases, but in some cases.
Yeah.
And when you think what the analogy that I said, Andy, earlier on, if you've got a ditch, what is the principal use of that ditch, right? And then you're saying there's material being dumped in there. Well, that tells you that the ditch had another purpose in the actual usage of the wording, right? And this is the point that we've got to go with. And then Andy, we can be really radical and say that some of these causewayed enclosures were turned into hill forts. That's my point.
Yeah, that could be interesting, because I was just going to go on about the cross section of that ditch was really interesting. There was almost a line that went in a traditional V-shaped one, rather than the outer edge being sharp and then the inner edge being gradual, which would suggest possibly defensive, but which and possibly even reuse. But
well, actually, we didn't actually look at the plan at all. You can actually, if you look at the phases.
Yeah.
So obviously the higher numbers that you get here. Right, the context system is a bit odd here, but
it is, isn't it? Yeah. If you look at that 611 and 613, there's almost, if you took that line down there, you've got a V-shaped ditch, haven't you?
Yes.
But whether I'm guessing there are others 628, so.
And if you look at context 604, it's almost flat bottomed across the whole thing.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, to be honest with you, it would be good to understand what these contexts mean, because to be honest with you, the usual context method that you usually use is the earliest numbers are on the bottom and the highest numbers are on the top.
Yeah.
This is rather mixed up.
Yes.
I think the context numbers have been put on your identified as features.
Yes.
As they've been going along. So
Yeah.
that's not my context
No.
system. Whittle's
No,
using
it's not the one
something
I'm
else.
used to either. But just the actual shape is interesting, isn't it? That outer edge is much steeper than the inner edge. So
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it would. Right. Okay. What we need, what would be good is that I did have the other one. I think the best way of doing this would be to look at Hambledon Hill, and the ditches at Hambledon Hill. Yeah. Let's just give me some more. Yeah. We needed to do this. And then be a little bit more specific, and that's Hambledon Hill quickly, Peterborough. Where we'll do that not next week, but the week after.
Because it's the opposite way around to a defensive one, isn't it? So
yes. So hang on. So we got that's going inside.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's sharper. It's more straight on the outside.
Yeah. If you were walking along, you'd fall in that.
And is that meant to be a palisade all running along the top?
No. This is a cross section of the ditch. No.
That's just the fill. Yeah.
That's just a fill. That's just a fill.
It's a what?
The fill. The fill. What is being filled?
Oh, I see. All right. It looks like a palisade.
No.
Just drawing it like that so that you can see it's different.
Just
cross section.
People like me.
Andy, I'm different.
Yeah. Yes. Which one depicts you then, Carl?
What the one on the right there, and I think Margaret's the one on the left.
Using one, yes.
Yeah.
What's that stripy thing right down at the bottom that looks like the sole of a shoe? I don't know what that. I think it annoys me that thinking. I want to know what that is. You know.
All right then. Right. What I need to do is I need to. Okay. Right. Okay. I need to. We need a decent cross section. Right. Okay.
Corrugated cardboard.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll try and get a decent cross section next time. One that we can really get to grips with. Right. Okay. This was supposed to be an overview today, but it's been a pretty good overview. And I gotta be honest with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was brilliant that we had David just talking like that. It was good. So right. Okay. Right. All right then. Andy, anyone else they want to say tonight?
No, thanks.
No, that's it.
Good, thank you.
Oh, did we ask Adam? We didn't ask Adam.
No, we did. It's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, we did. Okay. All right then. Well, I'm just going to check my notes to see I've done everything, and we've told you what we're doing next week. No doubt. Don't forget to keep reading the books in the library, and that's good. Other than that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say good night to. If there's nothing else, Peter, I'll see you in the morning. Not the other Pete, the other Pete. So I'm going to say good night to Pete, Margaret, everyone online, Andy and Adam. Anything wants to chat afterwards, they can. But if not, I will see you all next week.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night. Take care. Night, folks. Right, that's it. So we've all finished. So hopefully everybody's had a good one today. I'll go in. Definitely not British then. Oh, I see what you mean. I didn't say what I didn't know. I didn't say. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, the little box. Definitely not British then. I don't know. Could have been made anywhere. The little box with makeup in. Anyone online got anything more to say it now. But if not, I'm going to go to the chat box. Close the chat box. Close the chat box. Close. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing in a minute. Right, okay. Nobody's put anything in the chat box on this one. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. No messages in the chat box. We're going to say like, subscribe. I've lost the plot. I've got to make sure everything's fine around you. And thank you very much for watching today. And yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. we will see you tomorrow. Wednesday at 7:20 in the 20ish in the evening. Bit of a sort of repeat of what we're doing now, but probably some other content and some other stuff if you want to join it, sort of recap on whatever. Obviously next week 7:30ish on Tuesday, about 7:40 by the time we get going. And Wednesday we've also got Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock. So come and join me. So I'm going to finish that now. I've got a few things to do. I haven't eaten. Anyway, thanks for watching. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe, please.